We don't want to talk about the investigation. We don't want to talk about what happened a year ago. We want to talk about Jason and his legacy, and you, and the past year, and your kids, and being thrown into the most unexpected whirlwind that one could ever imagine. The thing you probably get asked all the time is, how are you doing? How do you answer that?
Well, I want my innocence back. Nothing smells like Jason anymore. And, you know, our 20th wedding anniversary was in May, and our wedding song was, "I Will Be Here." And he wasn't here for it. He wasn't here for homecoming court. He wasn't here for buying first cars. He wasn't here to teach our son to drive. And he's not been here for the heartbreaks, and he's not been here for the vacations. In fact, my 90-year-old grandmother, who lived with us for 20 years, she passed soon after Jason. And we weathered a huge blow with that, and he wasn't here for that either. And so, you know, how you put one foot in front of the other after that is huge. And no, I'm not okay. None of us are okay. He was the J to my Aunt Gigi, and no amount of hope that I might draw from brings a daddy back to walk his girls down the aisle. No amount of faith is going to travel the world with me when we become open nesters. We were supposed to be open nesters in 5 short years. Nothing brings that back. And so, to be honest, it's really raw. But at the same time, there's no but yet. I'm showing up big in every single void, because that's what moms can do. And I'm showing up for those kids, and my smile is bigger than ever, because it's for me to express the pleasure and delight that he would have. I cheer louder on the sidelines than I would have before, because it's for both of us. And I'm doing my best, but I will say there's no well of strength deep enough inside of me to produce that on my own. And that's truly where I'm clinging to the faith and hope that I have, that was so much a part of Jason's life, and that he planted our family on so firmly, because apart from that, I wouldn't be having this conversation. I mean, the will to keep moving forward. It's not a moving on. It's never a moving on. But the will to keep moving forward requires tremendous faith, tremendous hope.
Are you consciously thinking, I'm going to cheer louder? Or are you consciously thinking, I'm going to show up bigger because Jason's not here? Or is it become something more instinctual and you just find out later you did it?
It's more of a realizing it later. But, you know, I'm leading our family through uncharted terrain. There's no map. There's no guide. I'm leading them through a grief journey and helping them experience vulnerability and transparency with what they're feeling. At the same time, I'm exuding strength so that they feel some element of safety. They've lost their protector. They've lost their playmate. And the way that he would play with them softened all the rough edges of life. And they've lost all of that. And so of course they're looking to me for that, and the ability to be able to give time and space to my own emotions and feelings, and write and feel them deeply, but then in the same breath run a household and do all the things, fix the things I didn't know existed, right?
What are you fixing? What are the things you've had to learn in the past year that you never thought you'd ever have to learn because it was always taken care of for you?
Well, the hardest things to fix are the broken hearts, right? And that can't be fixed. I wish it was as simple as changing the battery on the security system, which I did last night. I wish it was just as simple as, you know, fixing the microwave, because I mean, YouTube teaches you a lot of things. It's not any of those things that really give me as much pause as it's helping navigate weighty life decisions with older and young adult children, helping shape the direction of their futures. You know, that's what a dad would do, a protector, and he would always wrestle with them about some of the weightiest things, but yet, again, softening those edges too with his playfulness and his encouragement. So really, it's filling those voids and trying as best as I can.
So who takes care of Jillian?
Great question. Well, that's part of what I do too. But you know, I think it's really important to acknowledge that, you know, we wanted to be back here in North Carolina and families here. And that's a beautiful thing. And when I married Jason, I was welcomed into a wonderful family. And I can see how he became the incredible man that he was and that we remember. I mean, of course I was part of that, but you know, that was largely due to his mom and his dad and his brother and their shaping influence over his life. And they're wonderful. They check in with me all the time. I have an incredible relationship with them. They're all the time praying for me, daily text, daily scriptures, constant encouragement. I have siblings. I have a sister that's amazing. She has slept with me because, gosh, that's different, you know? So my family looks after me. My children, to a degree, look after me. A whole community, to be quite honest, has looked after me. And it's been incredible. You know, there's pain that no one can fix. There's voids that can't be filled. Yet, students sent letters. Students he taught, school visits he made, they sent letters. And flowers came from all over. Meals came. People have sent housekeeping.
People you didn't even know.
People I didn't even know. One of my students' dads said, you know, can I take your car to go get inspected? It looks like it needs to be done. You know, people are showing up in incredible ways. And so, you know, I'm reminded of that because this is a painful season for people that have experienced loss. Give thanks is everywhere. And that's not the first thing that comes to mind when people have walked through tragedy like this. You know, the loss feels too huge to feel grateful for any part of it. And so when a community surrounds you and expresses love in such tangible ways, suddenly your focus shifts a bit and you're thankful for that.
So you're saying you find things to be grateful for in other unexpected ways that you never thought you'd lean on.
Yeah.
Anyone who knows you, and I feel truly honored, and to be quite transparent about it, we've become good friends over the past year. So anyone I say from a personal standpoint who knows you would say you are incredibly intentional. Mm-hmm. And you're well thought and you think through things. How do you think you've done that and sort of led with intention. From the outside looking in, you are leading with intention in everything you write, everything you say, how you present yourself, your choices with your kids, social media. It's just very intentional. You're an intentional woman. How have you used that and leading with intention through the past year?
So that's a great question. So, you know, Jason and I grew up together, and so much of our personalities and so much of who we are was shaped by each other. And, you know, him growing up being a pastor's son, he was very much engaged with people, right? And his energy for relationships, unmatched. Well, that's something that I gained from him and from the relationship with him. He shaped me in that way. I, on the other hand, spent my days growing up journaling, writing, creating. That's who I am. I loved speaking. I loved to play the piano. I loved a lot of what my kids jokingly would say are introverted activities. And so the beautiful thing is that, you know, he shaped me in such a way to help me also be intentional with people and with relationships. And so together, we really created a beautiful life, and he loved me so incredibly well. So incredibly well that the afterglow is very real. And so if you see a glow in me, it's because two things are true. It's true that the memories that we made were incredibly beautiful, and the legacy that he's left behind in me and in our children, incredible. But also true is that every memory that makes me glow, it hurts. It's painful because there was so many more memories to make. And I don't know how you get past that, but I do know that I've been careful to write, because that's how I process. You can write, you can delete, you can write, you can delete. And it's just this outpouring of my heart. And I'm leading my kids in that very same way. I've always been careful. Lydia and Andrew are both very similar to me in that way. And it's just a way of processing. Interpreting all that's gone on this past year is so critical. And being able to do that has allowed me to connect with other people, also walking through the unimaginable. And it's helped me feel less alone, to know that maybe some of what I'm learning is comforting them.
Do you think you are? Do you feel like you're helping others as you navigate it yourself?
You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm told that I am, but the reality is that, like I said, I'm walking an uncharted journey. Right. But I'm finding others on that same journey, you know, whether it's through trauma induced by childhood cancer, or whether it's the loss of a spouse, or whether it's a terminal illness. I've had something to offer them, and it's not me. It's more of me being a vessel to share what's giving me hope and what's coming alongside our family in our darkest moments.
The people approach you, and you hear from people often that come forward, it sounds like, that want to reach out to you because they feel some sort of kinship or kindred spirit with you.
Yes.
That's something to be thrown into you don't expect.
No, because I remember I loved to write and journal. I mean, I've grown into the relational aspect for sure. I loved being in Jason's world with him, but he carried the team.
He was the people person.
He was the people person, 100%. And I would love to write and reflect about it. So that's been different and beautiful. It takes an energy for me that I haven't had to be able to communicate with each person that's reached out. But I feel like in time, that's something that I certainly have a heart to do, because I've seen how people that have walked through the awful have even been more sympathetic and compassionate and empathetic toward our family. And I feel that I have comfort to offer others.
You are so family-centric. Jason was so family-centric. He would talk about you and your kids all the time. He'd be in the Weather Center talking about soccer games and hikes and what you guys all did. What do you see in your kids, each one individually, that reminds you of Jason, that he left them in them?
What a great question. I love that. Well, so Andrew, our oldest, he's quite loyal and very responsible, incredibly hardworking, and that's a tremendous part of Jason's legacy. I mean, he always provided so that I had the option to be home with our children, and that's what I always wanted, and that's what I enjoyed. So I see that hardworking drive in Andrew. He's always forward-thinking and visionary. And then our daughter, Lily, she brings all the fun and all the charisma, and she knows how to have a good time. She has the most social energy of any of them, and she's quite a conversationalist. She's genuinely interested when she asks those questions. She wants to know you. She wants to actually get the answer, and she'll remember it, like her dad. Luke reminds me so much of his dad. He is my nighttime tuck-in every night. He's my good morning hug. And the ways that he's stepped right into being the man of the house, there's a lot to be said there. He's perhaps the most caring of them all. Lydia, she's intentional and she's thoughtful, and she and her dad had an incredibly special relationship. The notes that they exchanged between the two of them, of course, you know, they were tooth fairy notes, not just tooth fairy notes, but the relationship that they had, incredibly, incredibly sweet. She's clearly the most thoughtful and caring in that way. She has a lot of me too, and you know, that's when you're married, it's muddy, who's which, you know, but definitely her intentionality and her thoughtfulness, because he was that. I mean, I know we talk about me being intentional, but gosh, he was the most romantic man alive.
What happened here?
Well, I'm glad that you asked. Well, so in 2018, 2019, when we got back to Charlotte, I was in church one day, and I looked down at my wedding ring here, and there was no diamond in it. And so I'm looking at my hand, and I'm realizing, oh goodness. So for 2 months, I wore nothing on my hand because there was no diamond, and I just had this permanent imprint of my engagement ring, right? And anyway, time went by, we couldn't find it, and I knew that Jason had ordered the mountain bike of his dreams. That I knew, but what I didn't know is that he had also bought the kind of get down on one knee jewelry of every woman's dreams. And so here at the Duke Mansion, he recreated that proposal day from Duke Gardens in 2003, and he brought with him to Duke Mansion, here where we are, the handwritten proposal script. And he had our kids with us, all 4 of them this time, and he had brought a picnic from P.F. Chang's, just like when we were together in Duke Gardens in Durham. And he got down on one knee. Apparently the kids knew about this. This was the best kept secret. I don't know why I was so surprised, because again, he was so romantic. There's so many stories there. But he did. He got down on one knee. He had this in his pocket, but most of it was memorized. And he gave me the ring I wear. And this was the 15th wedding anniversary. Lots of couples wait for 20. Well, this was our 15th. And it was here. And it was incredibly beautiful. Our kids were part of it. They recorded it. And that's part of why this place is so special to me.
Do you think about that moment a lot? Or is it just if someone asks? Do you think about the things, do they come into your head, all these amazing moments you have? You write about them. Do you consciously think about them throughout the day?
Of course. I mean, being the intentional person that I am, you know, after he proposed to me at Duke Gardens, of course I ordered a print from a photographer of the spot that was taken, you know, a month apart from when we got engaged. And so I pass it every time I'm in my home. I think about it all the time. I mean, I still wear this because, yeah, I know what it feels like to not have it on, but gosh, there's just too much that I've let go of this year that it's hard. It's hard to let go of the things that you choose to let go of. And I don't know, wearing this just somehow still makes the loss more palatable for whatever reason.
He's physically on your hand.
Yeah.
He's with you every second.
In my heart.
In your heart. How would you say your faith has been tested this year? You and Jason, both so faithful, grew up in church and have actively chosen to raise your children in church, and yet things that have no answers why happen.
Right.
How does that test your faith?
Well, in every way, shape, or form imaginable, because your theology and what your mind believes and ascribes to, right, is there. It was shaped our whole life. And nothing quite rocked it prior to this year. And I can't say that I've been tested to that degree. And I'm so thankful for the foundation of faith that we both shared. It was such a tremendous part of our family. I mean, when I go through Jason's notes and his Bible that was all written in, I mean, it's just tremendous comfort to know that's where his security was found, truly in his relationship with Christ. It's provided comfort because I know that I won't have Jason here, this side of heaven. I know that. It's very real. Like I said, nothing still carries his scent. He's not going to be here to bounce grandbabies with me. It's devastating, and I can't walk through this life without knowing that he's in a better place. And I wasn't promised a life without difficulty. I wasn't promised that. I hoped it would be different. This is a chapter of a story that I didn't want to be mine. Yet through all of that, I'm pointing our kids, I'm pointing myself to the firm foundation of knowing that a perfect place is where Jason is. He's experiencing that reality, and I know that because of his faith in Christ. It was beautiful that he was able to baptize our daughter, Lydia, and that she chose that for herself too, because there's this understanding that we have ascribed to and that we believe with our whole soul, because let's be real. When you walk through trauma, nothing is secure. Nothing is safe. And so I'm clinging to the only security that's safe enough for my soul. And that is knowing that, gosh, Christ loved me so much, that he made things right between me and him, something I could never do. Because actually, that whole I've done more good in my life than I've done bad, well, who decides that? No, we've actually all done awful stuff, thought awful stuff. He made that right with him for us. And in doing that, it's provided a way for a right relationship with him in this life and beyond. And so it's a peace that I can experience now while I'm walking through devastation and loss. It's a spirit that is helping me as I'm guiding children, as I'm making those weighty life decisions, and as I'm showing up for them. It's not the strength you see isn't just from me. I'm drawing from a much deeper source because I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I want to show up in every way for my kids. I'm not enough. I've walked through it too. And so it's truly the source of all of the strength that you're seeing, because I know this to be true. I believe it with every fiber of my being that Jason's whole and we're going to be beyond this life. And that's been a tremendous comfort, because Jason led our home in that way, and he made his faith and his walk with Christ the leading and orienting component for all of our lives.
Do you ever get tired of people saying, you're so strong? Jillian, you're so strong. How do you do it? You're so strong. Do you ever get to be not strong and break down and be not composed and have a moment, even if no one sees it or if the family sees it? Do you ever have that?
Yeah, I 100% do. I don't get tired of people saying that, because there's a tremendous amount of grace that goes with when people say things and they mean it with all their heart. Because I was that person that found myself in situations before this that I didn't know the words to say, and so sometimes I didn't. And so there's all kinds of people that are struggling with, what do I say to Jillian? You know, how do I form the words of comfort? And so I see people, you know, saying, yes, you're so strong, and I take it as a compliment, but there's so much that they don't see. There's tremendous life that's been out there. All of this has been public, right? But there's very much a private element to it too. And when, in the absence of tears, there's physical grief that happens. And it's palpable, it's private, but it's very much a reality.
I find that so fascinating that you say you've learned how to now talk to people and approach them, because people don't know what to say. So many people want to reach out to you or to others who are going through things, but they don't know what to say.
Sure.
So they either say nothing or say something that might be the wrong thing. How fascinating to hear you on this side now saying you've learned more on how to make that approach. What do you suggest to people on how to act around someone who they want to try and comfort or say something, but they don't know what to say?
Yeah, so, I mean, clearly I'm not the expert on this, because again, I was that person too paralyzed to do or say anything. But the first thing that's been incredibly meaningful to us is just when people show up. Usually, when we want to say something to make something better, without realizing it, is partly to make ourselves feel better. We don't realize it, we don't intend it that way, but it's kind of what it is. Nothing that anyone says makes better. But showing up and taking something off of someone's plate when they're grieving and when they're walking through loss is huge. They'll never know what to tell you to take off their plate. It's too foggy. I mean, this whole past year has felt foggy. It just lifts at times. And so and also I think it's important to recognize that, you know, there's degrees of connectivity with people. So, you know, you're not going to show up at the doorstep of someone that you've, you know, maybe not ever been in their home before. And so recognizing that, and you'll know where you are in that circle of that person and what you can take off their plate, what you can do. Words, though, however, that do mean a lot is you don't have to go through this alone. I see you, and I'll be here for you. Words like that, because especially in my life, losing my love, my soulmate, the fear of being unseen, because there's so much that Jason saw. He didn't let him, it wasn't lost on him. I noticed you cooked a really good meal tonight. I really appreciate that you cleaned up our room. I mean, he made mention of everything. And I was very seen. I was very valued. I was very treasured. And I knew that. It was text. It was handwritten letters. He called me every day. I mean, just to touch base. That's what he would say. And so when someone's walked through loss, they want to feel seen. They want to know that someone recognizes that however you're feeling, I'm here. You're not alone.
It's priceless, remarkable advice to help others, even though we're here to talk about you and your family and Jason and his legacy. It's remarkable advice. It's so, so good. You've said multiple times you've made lots of life-weighty decisions this past year. You don't need to go into details of each one, but sort of like a running list. You have kids that are all teenagers in massive decision-making mode. What is a running list you have in your head if you just had to start saying of some of the decisions that you have had to make the past year?
Well, I mean, Jason was our primary provider. So that's huge. What does that look like for me to step into that role? Yes, college decisions. Where to go to college, what career path to pursue. One child changed schools, navigating that. You know, the decisions of whether or not to continue caring for my 90-year-old grandmother who lived in our home, knowing that our caregiving is what brought her life. Huge decision. You know, cars to buy. I mean, relationships that, you know, kids are needing help navigating, right?
They're teenagers.
Yes.
That's hard.
But also discerning when to let them make choices and when to step in as their protector. You know, what is that role? What does that look like? Mama bear is something to be reckoned with, but I never found myself in that arena. I'm locking the doors, you know, it's just the things that go bump in the night, that's me. And it's just too many voids to name. I mean, all of the things.
Like you said, changing the batteries for the security system might be last night, but it might be fixing the dryer or figuring out how to budget something on a different night or launching a child to college.
Well, I mean, it's insurance, it's finances, it's budgeting, it's the things that we shared that are now, for me, it's those conversations that you would roll around together just to get another opinion. It would be confidential, and you would, you know, come out of it like, oh yeah, I know what to do now, you know. It's a lot of things.
I bet it's daily things. It has, yes. Last thing that I specifically wanted to ask about, you've talked about Jason and his legacy, and anyone who knew him will remember him. There's a great legacy he has left. How do you describe his legacy? And then also in the past year, some of the things that have happened that you feel like are his legacy?
Well, you know, we talked about the first engagement ring, right? You know, lots of summers of working a plumbing job with his granddad, laying pipes, running his own painting business. I mean, a legacy of hard work, right? A legacy of when we found out that we were going to become parents, he took on an additional job, late nights, working UPS, providing. That's a huge part of his legacy. But a tremendous part of it, you would think that it might contradict the hard work, but the tenderness and the playfulness that he fostered in our home, that's been lost, and I want to see that back, but I don't know how to champion that like he did, for sure. So that's just a void, but he encouraged, he saw, he called out the best in people, and he was so intentional with relationships, you know. Not to mention, I mean, you know, gosh, I'm most proud of the way that he loved me. I mean, he loved our children. Nobody doubts that. But he loved me so well. He loved his parents so well. I mean, he showed up and surprised his mom on Mother's Day, you know, drove 2 hours, you know, just to be there, to be with her. He loved the people most important to him. And he always offered encouragement and genuine interest. And I see these things shaping our children. I see them shaping me. I love that this year, you know, from the fruit of his encouragement to our kids, you know, that last email that he sent to them, November 16th, nudging them to be part of advocating for St. Jude. It's been incredibly beautiful to see two of them step up in that way, and then now Lydia wants to once again do that, to continue his legacy with that, because he was all about helping others, and he's inspired them to step into his shoes. They've chosen it for themselves, and it's been beautiful to see that legacy continued. It's been beautiful to see the way that they watch their dad care for me, and it's been beautiful to see them do the same. Luke told me that awful day, he said, "Mom, I just want you to know that I'm always going to be here for you." And the very next day, he said, "Mom, can you teach me how to make coffee? Because I know Dad always brought you coffee in bed, and I'd like to help with that some."
And he was 15?
Yeah.
St. Jude, you mentioned it, the Emmy. There have been some bright spots in the past year.
Truly. I mean, that Emmy is pretty special. It really is. I don't know if anybody's earned one before after their passing, but it's a fixture in our home for sure, because what the public knows is that he was great at his career, and he was, in many ways, living his dream of having Eric Thomas's job. You know, he grew up watching him, and Eric inspired him to be a meteorologist, and, you know, that was in so many ways his dream. But I can't help but feel like, I'm pretty sure a big part of his dream was being married to me, because we knew each other for an early age, and I know it was a big part of my dream to have him. for sure.
Hashtag good spouse keeping as created by you.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that what he would say he was the most proud of, but again, I don't know, but it's what I'm the most proud of him for was the way that he loved me and the way that I loved him. I mean, a soulful, surrendering kind of love. The kind that makes sparkle. That's good spouse keeping. And I miss the love that our marriage made. It was beautiful. And it lives on. It's just not in a tangible, physical way with his presence here. And I'm reminded of what a great loss, because it was so beautiful.
You're amazing. You are amazing. Is there anything else you want to make sure you say?
I don't think so.